Susan Wachter, professor of real estate at the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School, says that shoe has, in fact, already dropped. She joins us now from Philadelphia with her perspective. Welcome. So how much of a wake-up call was the December jobs report that many homeowners of the best credit will still see challenges making their mortgage payments?
That's a real problem, and not just the unemployment problem, which of course is a problem for the whole country and particularly for those families suffering, but it's a problem because we haven't seen the end of the housing foreclosure crisis. That continues. So as we have these option arms, that is prime borrowers who are going to be facing recasting higher payments without a job, it's going to make it very difficult for them and threaten the recovery.
Your research, Dr. Wachter, found that 25% of homeowners are underwater. That's staggering.
25% of mortgage borrowers are underwater, and that's the problem today. So, even downsizing a home, if that's what has to happen, going in, renting, whatever, with families, you can't sell your home. You can't sell your home for the mortgage amount, and of course that means it sets up all sorts of bad incentives. But besides that, it's a problem for the banking system.
Another problem out there is this issue of shadow inventory. Robert Shiller, the Yale University professor and co-author of the S&P Case-Shiller Home Price Index, said in a recent interview, as you're saying, there will be continuing foreclosures and not just subprime, it will be prime. This is creating a huge shadow inventory of homes that are still owned, but they're going to be on the market in the next year or so. Have we realized the fallout from this shadow inventory issue?
That is the problem. The problem is the excess supply, not the excess supply in current inventories, but the excess supply that is the hidden inventory. And the question of how fast that comes online, that is, how fast, quickly, what's the timing of the forced sales really matters in terms of whether it go into a second dip. It may be that we avoid a second dip. If those homes come on the market, and they will, the foreclosures are going to happen, if it happens slowly over the next year or two and the economy keeps on improving, then we may not have a second dip. We may be at a bottom. However, there are many threats to that. Most importantly, what happens to interest rates. Interest rates may go up. And if they do, we have a real problem.
I want to carry on with the interest rates theme here, but I want to ask you more about foreclosures. And if foreclosures drive home prices down, is that ultimately a good or a bad thing to recover the housing market?
Well, obviously it's a very bad thing temporarily because banks are depending on it. Their loan decisions depend on it.
But it wouldn't draw more
buyers
in at cheaper prices?
Sure, it means that we have more affordability, but it means, and here's the problem, it means as prices decline, it means more people are on the margin for walking away, and it encourages further foreclosures, which increases the supply. So this very destructive phenomenon of foreclosures feeding further foreclosures. And it's not that we are in some ways near fundamental bottoms, but we can actually go beyond that. We can be in a destabilized situation where we, just like we went over fundamentals, we actually can underperform as well. And that kind of instability is what I'm mostly concerned about. It may not happen, but it could happen, especially if interest rates spike.
What's the best strategy? What course should the Fed take with regard to not only its monetary policy, but this idea that it's going to stop purchasing mortgage-backed securities, correct?
Yes, but on a Christmas Eve event, the decision was made that all Fannie and Freddie securities would be basically guaranteed by the federal government. That changes things. That gives a security to the lenders in terms of those instruments that wasn't there before and should bring stability to that market. Without Fannie and Freddie and FHA, there would simply be no market. So we depend upon that. On the other hand, if overall interest rates increase, then obviously so will Fannie and Freddie securities, and that will go right home to Main Street and to the banking system and help and undermine the nascent recovery. I hope that doesn't happen. We don't know whether that's going to happen. Right now, there is no hint of inflation, but nonetheless, even in that, with no inflation, interest rates are heading up.
We'll have to leave it there. Dr. Wachter, many thanks.